Let's talk about another reason why you and your teacher clash, either if you're a student in math class or you're a parent who's upset with how math is taught. And we're going to talk about something called the chunk size filter. If you followed Tony Robbins or heard of Tony Robbins, you may have heard of him talk about chunk size, but we're going to break that down in this video. The question you ask the student, either if you're a parent that's trying to help your child in math class do better, or if you want to be a better teacher in general, you find the student and you ask them this question. And pick any subject in math that you're dealing with at the time. It could be algebra, statistics, equations, break it down, whatever. If you and I were to do math homework together, would you prefer the big picture, or would you prefer the details? And then as soon as you ask that question, you be quiet, sit back, and let the student answer. And they are going to tell you one of two things. They may say big picture. They may say details. You immediately follow up with this. If they answer big picture, you ask them, great, would you care to know the details afterward? And then you'll get another yes or no. If they say details, you say, after that, would you care to know the big picture? And they will answer yes or no. Once you ask those two questions in succession and get the answer, you will come up with 4 types of students. Big picture only. So that's somebody that says, I'm big picture, and when you ask about the details, they say, I'm good. Second is big picture followed by details. Now, this one is important because a large chunk of the people on the planet, this is how we were raised to learn. This is called deductive learning. And this is the way most classes are taught. So if you're struggling in a subject, chances are you've been taught like this, and maybe that's not your preferred method of consuming information. The third type of answer you're going to get is, I prefer the details only. So you ask somebody, what would you prefer, the big picture or details in algebra equations? They say details. You follow up with, would you like the big picture? Would you prefer to know the big picture after that? They say no. That's type 3. Type 4 is, I want details first, and then I want a big picture. Sometimes, by the way, and these people are special. This is about 10% from what we know from studies of the population. We call these inductive learners. And this is how I built MathCelebrity, by the way, and I'll get to that in a minute. These people give me 7, 8, 9 examples of an equation. Sometimes they'll want the teacher or the instructor to give them the big picture, but a lot of times they're going to take the details and then they're going to reverse engineer a formula to solve all or most of those type of problems. If you've seen AI, ChatGPT, machine learning, Google's Bard, this is what they're doing. It's inductive learning. They comb through millions of records of data, and then using mathematical algorithms, they're reverse engineering and learning the big picture from all the details. So sometimes these people may actually get bored in your class if you teach this way, because they don't want to hear the big picture first. They want the details, and then they're going to chunk up. That's another term we're going to talk about, chunk up into a formula that can cover all the math problems. So back to Tony Robbins, if you chunk up, you're going more big picture. You're going higher level. Pretend you're at sea level. Chunking up, you want a bigger picture. You're in the cloud looking down. If you chunk down, you want more details. I want to zoom the camera and I want to zoom the satellite and get into the nitty-gritty details. Now, why is this important? Why are you clashing with your teacher? If you're like a chunk of the population, this is how your class is taught. What if you want big picture only? The second your teacher gets to the details, you tune out. You don't want that. You'll get into the details later if you want, but right now you just want the big picture. If you're a details only person, your teacher's starting at the opposite end of the spectrum. They're going way up in the clouds and you want to get into the nitty-gritty details. Think about a mechanic that likes to tinker around in one part of the engine. If you just start teaching them about cars in general, they may not want to learn that way. And then fourth, and this seems to be one of the most difficult groups, and sometimes you'll get geniuses in here, is I don't want the big picture first, I want the details. And then if I feel comfortable, I will either A, ask you as the teacher or the tutor about the big picture, or B, I'm going to make my own big picture like the algorithms do. I'll take the details, I'll chunk up, and I'll make my own formula. So this is another perfect example of why teachers, students, and parents clashes. Teachers may only have 45, 50 minutes to teach one way, and obviously they're going to teach the way they prefer. Most of the time that's this, or maybe sprinkle with a little of these. But you're leaving the other three groups behind. If you struggle with this, maybe you're a details-only person. Maybe you can pull the teacher aside or the tutor and say, look, I'm struggling in class. I want to start with details and move up. So even if you can't teach the main class that way, can you take some time with me after the class? And if your teacher says no, then find a tutor that you can work with. As a parent, if you're watching this, this is a huge clue into why your students and your children may be struggling. It's not that they don't know the material, it's that they're being fed in the material at the wrong sequence or the wrong rate. So ask these two questions. If we're going to work together and work on insert math subject here, would you prefer the big picture or the details first? Once they answer, follow it up immediately with, would you care to know about the opposite? So if it's big picture, it's details. If it's details, it's big picture. Write that down, and now you have a step-by-step blueprint for how to teach your child.